Hi, everyone. Happy November 1st. I'm Catherine Endy, the Family Life Coach, and today we're going to be talking about how to handle the post Halloween sugar crash. If you are in the US or in another place that celebrates Halloween, chances are you are seeing some unsavory behaviors today and maybe last, and maybe you will continue to see some of these behaviors into the next couple of days. And so I want to provide you with some suggestions and support for how to handle this. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the effects of sugar, just some reminders of this chemical, this substance that we're putting in our bodies, that we're letting our little people put in their bodies. Sugar is actually more addictive than cocaine, so more addictive than crack cocaine. This has been shown, at least in lab rats or mice, that sugar is really quite addictive because it releases dopamine and opioids in the brain. So if your child is acting like a crack addict who hasn't had a fix, that is for a reason. And it's because sugar is very, very addictive. It doesn't necessarily mean that sugar is evil or that you should never ever give your children sugar. That's not the message here, but just to know this information, right? To just know that sugar is super addictive. It's also important to know and remember that red dye causes symptoms that look a lot like ADHD, so attention deficit disorder. So this, you may or may not know this, but some of the dyes that are used in food and candy, particularly red dye, can cause hyperactivity and inability to regulate oneself. And so this is something that's going to come up if your kids are eating some of those fruity candies that have a lot of dye and food dye and things like that. So if you're seeing some of that kind of behavior and it feels alarming, just know that red dye can really have an impact. So if your kid is especially sensitive to something like red dye, you might consider removing those candies from their stash. When I was growing up, one of my brothers was diagnosed with ADHD, and when my parents took red dye out of his diet, it really helped quite a lot with some of his symptoms. So red dye can be a player in the post-Halloween mix there. Another thing to be aware of course, is caffeine. Chocolate has caffeine in it, so we know that caffeine can really amp up our energy level and make kids a little extra energetic. So you might just want to think about that in terms of when you give those candies to your children. Maybe you have a certain time of day when you have a cutoff that, not after 4 p.m. We don't have chocolate after 4 p.m. because you might notice that there's elevated energy levels and crazy behavior when they have chocolate, and that might make it difficult for them to sleep. And I'm expecting that, already your children probably stayed up a little later than usual last night if you went out. So these are things to keep in mind in terms of the impact that the candy is having on your little people. And you might be wondering, how much candy should you allow? And there's been a lot of conversation out there in the internet today about, how many pieces of candy should we allow, and should we take it away, and the switch witch, should someone come and take away the candy? Should we let them have it at all? These are all great questions to consider and things to really be mindful of. There's no one right answer, right? There's so many factors. You know your child best. So is your child particularly sensitive to sugar, caffeine, red dye? Are they a person who really can't handle a lot of that? Maybe in that case, you pick 1 to 5 pieces of candy and get rid of the rest. Or is your child in a phase of their development where it's really appropriate to teach them how to regulate themselves around consumption of sugar? So I posted an article the other day on my Family Life Coach business page, which, by the way, if you're not following the Family Life Coach, I do have a business page. If you just look up the Family Life Coach on Facebook, you can follow that page, and I post articles there almost every day about early parenting and family life and young kids and all the things. So make sure to check that out. But anyway, I posted an article over there suggesting that one approach is to let kids have sort of unfettered access to their candy and let them learn to self-regulate. Now, that's kind of in the context with the caveat that you're maybe already a family that's introducing sugar at every meal or allowing dessert, allowing sugar, allowing your children to explore that and know when they've had enough and to decide when they've had enough. And again, this is really like you get to check in with yourself and decide what feels best to you. So you get to be in charge of this decision. So it's important to be informed. It's important to know the effects of sugar on growing bodies. And then you get to make the decision about what feels like the best approach for your family. So if your child is at a place where you think they can learn to self-regulate around sugar, what that looks like is not just here's all the candy, have at it, good luck to you. It's really about helping your child and supporting your child and recognizing how it makes them feel. So if they've just had a whole bunch of candy and they say like my tummy hurts, just highlight for them, not in a shaming way, but just like, oh yeah, do you think maybe you had a little bit too much candy? And just allow them the opportunity to check in with themselves and their own body and feel what that feels like. And allow them to make the connection like, oh yeah, I think when I eat too much candy, it doesn't feel so good inside my body. Maybe I'm going to make a different choice tomorrow. So these are some strategies for helping kids who are ready for that to learn to self-regulate around candy. So with all of this being said, you might be seeing more defiance right now. You might be seeing more tantrums, more intense tantrums, more frequent tantrums. You might be seeing more whining and less ability to just deal with everything, less ability to cope with stress. You might be seeing some just more meltdowns, and this is a natural kind of consequence or a fallout from a really overstimulating time. So a holiday like Halloween, but most holidays are very, very stimulating, right? There's a lot of input, there's a lot of sensory input, there's a lot of excitement, and there's sort of this build up and then this crash, right? And so today we're dealing with the effects of the crash. So just know that these are behaviors you're going to see. Just be prepared for it. You should expect to see some of this stuff. Now, if you don't see it, that's great too, right? It doesn't necessarily mean every child is going to have a terrible day today, but just be prepared for the likelihood that there's going to be some sugar and excitement related crashing today. And if you're seeing this, like, are you seeing this? If you're seeing some of this stuff, let me know in the chat, in the comments, what behaviors are you seeing? Are you seeing more whining? Are you seeing epic meltdowns? Like, what's going on today in your family? Let me know in the comments what kinds of behaviors you're seeing. So here are some things that you can do to mitigate and ease some of the behaviors and aftermath of Halloween that you're probably seeing today. The first one is to hydrate. Make sure everyone in the family is extra hydrated today. So make sure that your kids are drinking a little extra water, that you're getting a little extra water too. It's never a bad thing to have more hydration, right? It's really good for everyone. But this is going to help to also clear out some of the toxins that are swimming around in there as a result of having too much sugar. Relatedly, making sure everyone gets a little extra protein and some healthy fats, maybe some avocado, like some of these things that are going to help to kind of absorb some of that sugar. Making sure that there's some extra veggies in there this week. This is all going to help to kind of balance things out. My second suggestion for how to handle some of this stuff is to regulate. And what I mean by that is that you are checking in with yourself, taking care of yourself, doing a little extra for yourself so that when these inevitable behaviors happen, you are ready to meet them with calm and confidence, and that you're able to be the best parent you can be in those moments. So if you're eating a lot of sugar too, be mindful of how that's affecting your body and take extra good care of yourself so that you're able to meet their behavior with connection. And also just remembering to take it slow, low and slow, right? Like slow things down, maybe get low, lower your voice, just bring the tone of everything down as much as possible today, because everyone is just like a little overdone. My next suggestion is recalibrate. So recalibrate your expectations. Today is not a day to expect kids to be at their best, and not a day to expect them to do extra things or learn a new skill or clean their room or whatever it is. Today is really a day to just, again, lower those expectations. And that doesn't mean forever. It just means that we're recognizing that yesterday was a lot. Today we're dealing with the aftermath. So maybe lowering expectations and lowering your expectations of yourself too. Another suggestion is to shake it off. So make sure that everyone's getting a little extra movement today. Have a dance party in the kitchen, put on some music, get people outside if you can. Just give everyone an opportunity to move their bodies and let that energy come out in a physical way. Let everyone shake it off and get the wiggles out, especially before bedtime when you're wanting things to settle down. And one way you can do this is you can kind of play the high-low game. So get everybody all amped up, put on some loud music, and then you get to be in charge of like turning them down the music and then lowering your voice, and everybody moves slow. So you can do kind of a fast-slow game or a high-low game where you are in control of the speed and the tone. And this helps kids to learn those boundaries, like a stop start, like red light, green light, right? Like it helps kids to learn, like now I can go fast and now I'm going to stop. So that can be a fun way to work in some movement and some boundaries around, regulating your energy. And lastly, make your expectations clear. So if the rule is everyone gets 5 pieces of candy and we're going to put away the rest or donate the rest or whatever it is, just make that clear up front so that everyone knows what to expect, so that it's not a surprise when they come home from school or daycare or the babysitter or whatever and the candy is gone. You don't want those kinds of surprises. You want to make sure that the expectations are really clear. As well as you don't want your house full of candy wrappers this week, right? So if the rule is that you put the candy wrapper in the trash after you eat the candy, or you can make a pile over here and then take your pile to the trash, show them what to do. Show them what you expect. Make sure they know explicitly, because your people are little, and just because last year you were very explicit about what to do with the trash, or just because they quote unquote should know what to do with the trash, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to remember that right now, especially under these circumstances with all the sugar crashing and the caffeine and the ups and downs. It's a time for extra clear expectations and reminders. So that's what I got for you. I hope this was helpful. Please let me know in the chat what you think. Good luck today.